Okay, so we're going to multiply each of these by 200. Okay, which is going to give us 50, 100, and 50. And p squared is our homozygous dominant, which was 75. 2pq was our heterozygotes, which was 50. And q squared was our homozygous recessive, which was 75. So, is it in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium? No. Good. I mean, I would just have to change the numbers. Yeah.
How close do you need to be for it to be in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium?
Well, let's say you ended up with 48, 103, and 40. I mean, if your math is correct, then it's a judgment call. So if you decide that's close enough, then that's fine. But this is far, not even close. So it'll be obvious, though. I'm not going to give you one that's like somewhere in between. Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be exact?
Right. It doesn't have to be exact because in real life, nothing's really going to be exact. Even randomness produces above or below what you would expect. Yes. But it would be close, right? Based on chance. Right? And actually, you would do a statistical test to see how significant your results are. So if you're doing this in real life, you would have to do more in math, but we're going to stop here. Yeah.
How, like, it's like
0.453. Okay. But we're still not done, right? So how many people are carriers? We need to do that 0.453 times our total, which was 50.
It's 22.6, so 23.
So let's round up to 23 of those individuals are heterozygotes. So how many are homozygous dominant? All right, so you could just subtract, or if you wanted to do it by math, you could just take p and square it and multiply it by 50. Okay. And those are our sympatric species, right? Species that live in the same area, same time, same place, but they are separate species. What makes them separate? What makes a species different from another species? Okay, it depends on your concept of species, right? It could be they don't breed together, or okay, they have a different ecological niche. Okay. Okay, they may have different anatomy, which prevents them from breeding. Yeah, or different morphological characters as well. Yeah. Did someone say something else? Yeah. All this relates then to their DNA and their traits, which we can also use phylogenetically to trace them into different species. Some species, however, are cryptic. Okay, cryptic species are separate species, but they are morphologically indistinguishable. Okay, so if you can't tell them apart morphologically, what would separate them? Okay, yeah, looking at their genes. Again, going back to these other concepts. Maybe they don't breed. Maybe they live in different areas or have different ecological niches. All right? On the other hand, you may have populations which look very different, are in different locations, but are still the same species. Okay? If they're in different locations and they look different, how can they still be the same species? Well, they do, yeah. They should have a common ancestor. Okay, discuss that with your neighbor then.
There can be.
Okay.
Different areas and they're different species.
Right, so if they're the same species, they're subspecies, but they look different and they inhabit different areas. How are they same? How can they be the same species? So, really all I'm doing is splitting hairs with different species concepts, right? So if they're morphologically different, they inhabit different areas, how can they still be the same species?
They fill the same niche.
Okay. They fill the same niche, but they're in different areas, so.
Never mind.
Okay.
Is this where you were talking on the video with the 4 different snakes?
Mm-hmm. So what made them the same species? They live in different areas, they look different.
Like interbreed.
Okay, good. So biologically, along their borders, or where they border each other, they will still interbreed, okay, and create hybrids. What about the hybrids has to be true, though, if they're going to continue to make these? They have to be viable, they have to be fertile, okay? So there's no reduction in the viability or the fertility in the hybrids, okay? Yes?
So are subspecies and like breeds of certain animal the same thing?
Breeds generally apply to artificial selection, but kind of, yeah. So yeah, when you're talking about breeding, you're talking about humans selecting for different traits. Subspecies are naturally occurring, right? Yes, okay, so I have a list of organisms here that are somewhat related, and I want you to pick one, you and your neighbor pick one, and look and determine whether they are sympatric, cryptic, subspecies, all of the above, none of the above, and how you would determine then which of those, okay?
Can I do bears?
Northern and southern leopard frog. Okay, are they sympatric?
No,
Okay, do they form hybrids?
I don't think so, no.
No, okay. So are they subspecies or species?
They're different species.
Different species,
Yeah,
but they look,
they look the same, but
The
they're
same.
from different areas, so they'd be cryptic.
okay, good. So kind of like the elephants, but frogs. Okay, how about the big brown bat and the evening bat? Birthday bat boy? Did you do it? Did you look at it? Yeah. Yeah, so it is bigger, but they otherwise look pretty much the same. The same color, same like fur. They are sympatric, and they are not subspecies. Okay, good. What about the groundhogs?
They're subspecies. So the canadensis is a subspecies of monax.
So, when naming subspecies, they actually add this third name. Here, I'll use the same color. Okay, our genus and species, our specific epithet is Marmota monax, but for subspecies, they add a third name on there. So the canadensis and is found in Canada, believe it or not. Whereas the monax is found eastern United States in there. Are they sympatric? Are they cryptic? Yeah, you can't really tell them apart. The only difference is their location.
Wait, they're cryptic and subspecies?
Yeah, well, they aren't separate species, so they should look the same. But they don't necessarily have to look the same, right? Like the snake example, the subspecies all looked different. They had a different color in different subspecies. Yeah.
But do cryptic species have to interbreed? I thought it said that they don't interbreed. So wouldn't it? Do those two interbreed? Because
yes,
what it takes to be a subspecies.
they do interbreed along their borders, right?
So then would they not be a cryptic, or does cryptic specify that they don't breed?
So cryptic is that they look the same.
Oh.
Okay, species is that they breed together as well. Yeah. Okay. All right. I think that's all we have. Nope. It's not all we have. Okay, so speciation, this is kind of leading into the next part. Yes?
So are you saying that they can be symmetric and cryptic at the same time? And they
Yes.
can be multiple?
Yeah, you can be multiple of those things at the same time. All right, so speciation is a two-part event, or there are two parts to it. The first is separation. So what are some processes we talked about that would produce separation? Okay, bottleneck would be more like they're all dying, but similar. What's genetic drift, right? So if a population gets cut off from the original population, by going to an island or an uninhabited area or whatever, okay, it is probably going to have a different set of alleles than the original population. Okay? And there may be other ways to separate it as well, but genetic drift is one of those processes. All right, another possible one might be in geographic structures. Okay, so maybe a river forms or a mountain forms, and this may take millions of years, but some sort of physical barrier which can separate then populations. Okay? The second step then is reinforcement. Okay? And generally this is done through selection. Okay? So if they are physically separated, then they are in different environments. Okay, no two environments are exactly the same. Many of them can be similar, but if they're physically separated, then they're in different environments. And so if there's different environments, what type of selection is going to occur in those different environments? Is that? Adaptive, right? They would be adapting to natural selection, right?
Natural selection.
In addition to that, you may also have sexual selection occurring slightly differently in each area as well. Okay, so that reinforcement then, if they are isolated for long enough, can then create barriers for reproduction even when they are reintroduced back to each other. So let's say this river forms, it separates these two populations, they go through selection, and then the river dries up, the glacier melts or whatever, and now the populations can be in the same area. If those selection pressures are strong enough, they will not interbreed. If they do interbreed, then what do you have? They're the same species still, right? The selection events weren't strong enough, or the selection wasn't strong enough to reinforce that separation. Okay? And so gene flow or hybridization, those are barriers to speciation. So any event which increases or exchanges the genes between populations is going to decrease the speciation event. Okay, now I think done.